wants to be king!
The other day I was having a conversation with one of my buddies who has been caught up in this whole modern wave of whining about the particular ism that has to do with color of the skin. I found myself fielding the same ignorant talking points that I myself as a young man regurgitated when I was in college. And it made me realize that what we're dealing with in this country is cyclical. And whatever it is, whatever the catalyst is, it seems that every 20, 30 years or so, the masters start to pull the string and ruin the young generation, feed them the same narrative of victimhood and bullshit. And as I was engaging with them, I was also having a discourse with some of the subs in the comments of some of the recent comments and videos that I've made that have dealt with this. And while I appreciate other people's opinions, not one independent thought was shared. It's been the same narrative. Oh, what are you trying to say? This doesn't exist. Oh, what about this that happened decades, if not centuries ago? And it's the same bullshit talking points that I heard when I was in college, and then I heard growing up from the Black Power remnants that were in my family with my aunt, uncle, and my father. And as I listened to the youngster talking, we went back and forth, I realized that I have to be very conscious with the fact that these youngsters really believe that they're doing something, even though all they're doing is ruining their own future and that of their children. And it was kind of surreal, because it was almost as if a voice whispered in my ear and ask him this, ask him this, ask him this. And in the line of questioning left him stumped, because I simply wanted to know what happened then. And what I was referring to in the conversation was, in the 1800s, perhaps it was after Reconstruction, it doesn't really matter when it was in the 1800s, and there were a group of black men that were in the government. They held government office. Now, there's a twist on how we're taught history, because the way I was taught, and I remember the images that were shown, was basically a bunch of black rednecks in government buildings partying and acting like niggas. And so that was what the school teaching was kind of like we gave them a chance and then they screwed it up, and I don't remember the exact teaching, because I hated history as a child. But I remember looking at that and going, okay, well, I guess so. And I looked at how my own family acted, and it lined up. Well, as you go throughout history, you have to check these boxes of fact. It's fact that these black men held office in the 1800s. And it's also a fact that something happened that threw black people back. So we look at that. And then we look in the 50s and the 40s and the 50s, and black families rivaled white families in success. There was both parents in the family, children grew up healthy with a sense of morality, and there was a sense of pride in the black community. And then something happened. Well, you look at modern day, look at today, look at these children who are being told by rich celebrities, athletes, people who have graduated from prestigious schools like Harvard, all these Ivy League Negroes, telling people that in America there's oppression, racism, and they've got no chance, no choice. Well, just looking at who's talking to you, it's obvious that that's a lie. How are these people making millions of dollars at a job where undoubtedly a white man signs the checks? How is it so oppressive if these people have this position? And you have to stop and think and ask yourself that, but that's not the way that the narrative is spun. And what I said a couple of years ago when this whole thing jumped off after that criminal George Floyd passed away, when all of the people who have taken this torch and taken advantage to do just to be criminals instead of really pushing for change that would be beneficial for the community, I said to be very careful, because what's going to happen when the pendulum swings back, it's not going to be pretty. And the reason why I said that is because historically something always fucking happens. Black people always reach a position where they're doing well and then something happens. And you can tie it to racism, but you have to ask yourself why. Are the white people that are involved in these events, are they so angry to see black people flourish? Or perhaps is there something to it that makes people react that way? Now, recently, in talking to this youngster, I started thinking about the images and the story, the narrative that we were sold about the civil rights movement, and all the pictures and videos that we saw of people getting sprayed with water hoses and dogs sicked on them and all of that stuff. And I remember being angry when I saw that, those poor innocent people. But now, as an adult, as I see the peaceful protests that have destroyed livelihoods, cities, people's very lives, and Americans have been encouraged, if not forced, to stand down and let it be, I have to look at these events and ask myself, is this not what happened in the past? Is this not the something that happened? And if this is the case, what exactly is it that's the catalyst for this? Because from what I see, liberal white people and weak, victim-minded black people run this same gamut over and over again. Black people can be in a situation with the affirmative actions, all the entitlement programs, all the different things, but they seem to always take the easy road, and when the easy road ends to a dead end, then it goes back to the iteration of the ism, and look back, peel off your ancestor scars, and whine and cry about more, destroy, and be as violent as possible. Now, you would be foolish to think that if this thing has happened several times, then it didn't happen almost exactly, if not exactly, the way it's happening now. Because if we continue to play this course, this bullshit course that we're being instructed to march along to, in 20 years, George Floyd will be a martyr. He will be a civil rights activist in the same vein as Martin Luther King. And those of us who know better will be either too old to say anything, too tired to say anything, or expired by then, so we can't say anything. What I know for certain, and what I've seen most recently, is the pendulum is about to swing the other way. The people that have systematically used black people for their own end, the Democrat Party and liberal white people, have thrown black people again, weak-minded dummies, to the wolves, encouraged and propped them up. The DAs that are allowing these things to happen, letting these people go, this isn't for the benefit of these people. It is to cause the exact chaos that's being caused. Because you've got to create the problem so you can put the solution out. And when the pendulum swings back the other way, it's going to be nasty for those who have run the streets and felt like they could get away with whatever it is that they wanted to do. But one of the biggest things that I've started to see is I always question why what my grandmother told me was in direct contrast to a lot of the things that I saw when I went into certain households. That just the absolute hatred for people of color. I didn't understand that, but I think that I'm starting to understand it now. And what's going to happen if I'm right is in the future, the young black boys and girls who are being indoctrinated to feel like they're victims, to believe that somebody's superior to them, all of those kids are going to be in for a rude awakening when the little white kids and the other kids that are being fed to these victim-minded children, when those kids get fed up, then once again, we're going to see the same cycle play out. I recently saw an article where a young woke black girl in West Virginia decided that it was her best interest to do research about kids who use the N-word. And so she compiled a bunch of data, I guess, did whatever she did to feel like a journalist, and turned it in. Snitched on these white kids for using the N-word. On its face, I think that's absolutely ridiculous when everything in the black culture is based around saying nigga, 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 bitch, hoe, all this degradation. And then you want to become entitled and a victim when somebody else says it, just like when someone else pulls the trigger. It's gotten exhausting. Adults can see that, and children haven't known any better. But these young white kids in West Virginia have gotten their fill of this. And instead of the applause and the parade, this young black girl is finding herself confronted with young white kids that now see fit to fly Confederate flags in the back of their truck. She has opened up a can of worms that she didn't expect, and it will not go away lightly. I hope that nothing happens to that girl. I hope it dies off. I hope she learns a lesson and learns how to shut her fucking mouth and realize that she lives in the best country for a black person to be. But if she decides to keep going and running with the mob of dumbasses, then she's asking for everything that comes her way. You see, I think in America, although she's made her mistakes, the attempts to justify, rectify, and fix it are always met with this entitlement and this rage and this violence. And when the pendulum swings back the other way, the victims become victims for real. And then they start whining, and we're doing it over and over and over again. What is going on right now is the people that are running around calling everything racist, they are in the process of creating the very hatred that they feel that they're experiencing today. And in very short order, that will become their reality. Why? Because victims and spoiled brats don't know when to quit. The only thing that they understand is the very same medicine that they dish out. And when it gets dished out, inevitably, the mothers of these worthless children will run out in the streets and cry about how innocent their babies were. But the rest of America that has sat back and watched their babies destroy this country know damn good and well that that's a fucking lie. These people are creating the very hate that they say that they want to abolish. And that is exactly why it's being allowed. That's why it's being encouraged. That's why it's being financed. And that's why it will happen again. Out.